guys? Welcome to another episode of Trench Warfare. We're just going to start and go through probably the first half here. Maybe I'll bounce around a little bit today and just kind of, I'll see it and explain it as we go. We talked about going into the game. And first of all, everybody who's got NFL Game Pass, please send out an email or something to NFL.com because it's absolutely terrible that they can't get that all 22 end zone copy to work better than it does. It's not worth watching. So we're just going to watch this so we can see the coverages as well. But look, coming into the game, if you just look at it from, sometimes there's a story that I always like to tell that kind of explains what sports is really all about. Like when I was playing for Army, or when I was playing the Army-Navy game, I was playing for the Naval Academy. It was in, 1997. And there's always this hype and build up to the game. But the reality is that year we knew we were just like a lot better than them. Like it shouldn't be close. Rationally, it shouldn't be close. And we went out there and it wasn't a close game. Like we ended up beating them pretty bad because once you take the emotion out of some of this stuff and you take kind of the, like the aura that there's around like Ben Roethlisberger, or how good the running game used to be when they had Pouncey, when they had DeCastro, when they had Ramon Foster, when they had Le'Veon Bell. Like it's not the same team, right? It's not that they can't score points or the NFL offense, but it's not the same team. So once you just take that out and look at it rationally, like what do we have here? We have a situation where both tackles should be exploited by the guys that, we've prioritized stand-up ends in our defense. We prioritize that. We should be very, very good, and we should be able to create pressure. Kenny Clark's one of the best young players in the league, defensive tackle. He's not a pass rushing specialist, but certainly he does it. He really gets after in the run game. You can tell he's had a lot of success, I think, early in the season. And then we don't create a lot of pressure. To me, this is one of those situations where we could have spent some time kind of really getting in Roethlisberger's lap, even more than we did. I know we had the sack fumble. I know Rashad Gary had a great ball at the end of the game. I thought we would have 4 or 5 sacks in this game, and listen, I guess I'm just never satisfied. And it's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers line isn't professional athletes. It's not like they don't have an all-pro Hall of Fame quarterback back there. But, sometimes you just hope that we have the opportunity to get off. And let me show you what some of the things that I see when you watch this tape. As we're just going to go through it by play here. So right now, you have Rashawn Gary. Now, this is a typical thing, right? You have you bring 53 in, and you have Rashawn Gary stand up, and now he's going to go right or left of the center. And so basically you have 5-on-5 here, right? And all this means that they're going to keep the tight end, and they have running back, so it's really 5-on-7. They might chip here. It might be 5-on-7.5. They might chip here. It might be 5-on-7 or 8. But ideally, you can get these guys in a situation where they're all one-on-one blocking. We just think that we're going to win an individual matchup. And you see right away, and this is the kind of message that you need 52 to send. I mean, this is the kind of player he should be, right? Now, whether he doesn't get there, absolutely dump trucks the center. And so now for the rest of the day, the center's going to remember that. When it happens early in the game, like you don't forget. So we spent a lot of time early on in this 3-down line jam look where we brought these 5 up and we were going to decide who's coming, right? We're trying to keep them guessing. Like we're not going to necessarily bring 5 all the time, but we are going to try to get, a lot of times even like the New England Patriots, they'll do stuff like this and they'll only really rush for the lineman. Like the right tackle, for example, here, they might not rush him at all. They'll just keep this guy at bay, maybe chip off the tight end, keep him off of his route. But the opportunity really is, again, you're trying to get 4 1v1s. As we know, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers had a nice. The Pittsburgh Steelers probably script their first 15, just like most teams do, and obviously they came out and had some success. Looks like we probably had a call there we missed. This is just one of those situations. And again, this is kind of what we're talking about, knowing that Ben Roethlisberger does a bad job getting off the spot. So I'm going to just highlight down here as we go through this rush. Right here. At that level, understand where the quarterback is, knowing that he's going to step up from that spot. So he's not. So some quarterbacks get back 10 yards deep, 10.5 yards deep. Ben's at 9. So if Ben's at 9 and you're starting your rush kind of outside that little bunch formation they have there, it's almost impossible to get over the top here unless the left tackle falls or just completely whiffs on you. And I say that because right now is a situation where this player has to press the pocket, press him kind of horizontally, and put himself or the left tackle in Roethlisberger's face so he can't step up. And this is just a little thing that we don't really understand yet from a pass rushing mode. Now, the second thing here is you look at this play, just because it was a touchdown play. So obviously they brought linebacker up over the center. Now, when you rush, you're going to have different rush lanes. And 96 he's starting a 3 technique over the guard. I know it's more difficult to see here not having the end zone copy, but what he's going to end up doing is, if you watch this play out, is instead of occupying both, he rushes in and basically takes a double on the center, right? And right there, it just, again, this is one of those situations where it's not bad, but instead of doing that, and this is kind of the nuances of the game that are just interesting to me. Instead of taking an angle where you're just basically sliding yourself right into a straight line to the center, why not attack the gap? Like, you can attack the B gap, you can attack the A gap, but attack an actual gap and not the man. Because if you attack the gap, you're forcing the man to move. And now when you make a man move, especially a big man, and they're moving backwards, this is when their footwork gets messed up. This is when they have to turn sideways. And now you create that crease where the center and the left guard are both fighting, kind of facing each other, trying to hold off this one bull rush who came into the gap. Because these guys aren't technical masters at this point. These aren't like the best players that the Green Bay Packers are going to see inside. And these are just opportunities to set them up for a play later in the game. You see what I'm saying? Like, 69 can still post with his right hand, be open up for any kind of game they're going to play. And it's too easy. Like, those plays are too easy. We need to put more pressure on the gap, attack the gap, not the man. So we know the Packers offense has a ton of weapons. I love how they utilize 2 tight ends in this era of offense. I love that they give, Marcedes Lewis like his due for being such a great blocker. Really opens up what they can do offensively. Now, you got to remember, you have Cam Hayward was a world beater last year. TJ Watt, world beater last year. Minka, top 3 probably safety in the league. Joe Hayden. I mean, these guys have real players. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Okay. One thing that is unique as this game goes on is how much attention they end up paying Davante Adams more often than not. And it's harder to do, obviously, when you have a 2 tight end set in. And so this is one of those formations that the Packers identified early as something that they're going to be able to make a lot of hay with. So I know it's not perfect, but I just want you to see the line surge. And this is what really kind of matters. We talked about it before. If you have a really good line coach and you're a well-coached team, it kind of shows up when you pass off games and when you hit your double teams. So when you're running this 3-4 Pittsburgh Steelers defense, there's a couple key blocks, but the basic idea in these kind of plays are you have to have a tight end, especially out of a 2-point stance, Marcedes Lewis, that can match up here and get movement off the ball. But you're going to have doubles on Hayward. You're going to have doubles on the nose tackle. And really the onus is on Billy Turner back here to be able to single block this 2-gap player. And if he can single block that 2-gap player effectively, we're going to have some holes in the running game. And you see, and this is why Billy was my player of the game. I want to show this again. Like, this is really, really hard. So he starts on the 28. So Billy gets him 4 yards upfield on a cutoff block. It's 4 free yards for the running back. We always say it like this: for every yard vertically you push a guy, the running back can get three more yards. So he's created a 12-yard hole just by himself, right? Now, there obviously there's some other people involved in the game, but that's what matters. Okay, here's Billy again, and Billy's laid off the ball. But if we're just going to spotlight somebody who's doing a hell of a job, watch 77 again. Again, the movement ends up going backwards. 95 has his shoulders turned, and he's moving off the line of scrimmage. That is the sign of an effective rush. And here's where, you can just already see it early, right? We have Minka. Really, they're playing bracket coverage, right? They're concerned about 17, and this opens up the entire offense as the game goes on. But you just look early. What are they worried about? Well, they're really just worried here. It doesn't matter because we have arguably the best combination to do it in the NFL. But that's the thought process. Can't say enough about this job the young offensive line's done. But as you look at this, it's 1st and 10. You're going into field goal range, and this is kind of the difference between the old NFL and the new NFL a little bit. 1st and 10 going into field goal range, and they've got 5 receivers coming out, 5 blockers. You're rushing 3. I mean, you're playing coverage here, and this is you're ready to give up 3 points here because you don't want to give up 7. I mean, the thought process has just changed completely. Like, you see where the safeties are here, and it's just a different game now. And again, when you watch this, the Packers put the Steelers in a little bit of a situation they don't like, because you have somebody playing over the top here, but on the far side, but 17's down here. And you got 3-on-3, but like these 2 at least aren't really equipped to cover those 2. And again, you're not going to get home with 3 players on against our offensive line. This is the thought process of most NFL defenses right now against good quarterbacks, though. Can we make them take the long drive? Can we hope that, can we play over the top? Can we not give up long drives? Big plays? And can we make sure that we put the onus on the offensive line to not get a holding call, a tight end to not miss a block, a receiver to not drop a pass? Like, we think that your offensive execution is such that we would rather take our chances you having a 13-play drive than you going out there and just being able to take shots. Because it's just like in soccer, you have a guy that shoots all the time. And you're like, man, his shooting percentage is terrible. And he's like, well, yeah, but he scores 2 goals a game. He's the best player in the world. Right? This happens time to time. And, it's a chess match up top. And you're trying to figure out, first of all, you have Yosh, who's been playing lights out. Runyon, who's, one of my favorite young players in the league right now as far as at the guard position. And then Myers makes the point over the top. They have a man in the B gap. Now, whether Yosh is supposed to squeeze, they might just say this week, hey, we'd rather have the linebacker come up than the defensive end, and they're not going to squeeze this play, or they're going to try to double read, and you just can't double read out that fast. But these plays happen from time to time. They just guessed right, or we guessed wrong, however you want to look at it. Yep, they're looking like you could see the communication is they needed to squeeze that down. They didn't, but those plays happen. Nobody got beat there, right? The scheme got beat, and the communication wasn't what it needed to be. It's not the end of the world. All right, I'm just going to start skipping randomly around to some spots in this game, because as the game progresses, you just see, whether or not we stick to the game plan, whether we find something that works and just want to keep running with that offensively and defensively. And you look, the Steelers at this point, let's see, it's 1st and 10, halfway through the second quarter. So I think I know they've missed at least one shot play here. The offense is stalled. We've dropped 14 now. And you probably start at this point, you're watching the game, it starts creeping in a little bit. And I think from a defensive line standpoint, it's like, man, one more score and we're probably going to be able to, kind of pull our ears back here a little bit, pin our ears back and go. And so I always think, for me, it's harder for these guys in this stand-up position to have kind of the leverage and come from the power base that it would be ideal. Now, I know they can see more, but the problem is some guys don't get in a position to be explosive as much as they should. Like, in other words, it doesn't look like they're trying to run a race, right? I think Rashawn Gary has really kind of worked on his stance and being able to pop out of his stance, but it doesn't look like they're trying to run a race. Okay, just random observation. So obviously we like the fact that Stokes is in the game now and he's getting a chance to play, and he's got a lot of talent and it's kind of the same thought process, right? This is a 1st and 10 play, and he's sitting 8, he backpedals to 10, gives them the 5-yard out, and they're really willing. The Green Bay is kind of in the same bucket, right? Like, we just don't want to give up big plays, and we'll concede a 5-yard out. They don't think, and I'm sure with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they really don't think that they can sustain long drives over the course of a game, because they haven't proven that they can do that. Like, someone's going to make a mistake. Now, Stokes is getting exploited the last couple of games, just on stuff like this, playing a lot of, playing pretty soft coverage. And then you have to come and be able to make those tackles, I think the future's bright for him. Certainly, this stuff happens. You remember. Sometimes it's so hard for us to remember. This guy's a rookie. He's a young player. I know he played in some big games, obviously back in college, but this is different. This is a different ball of yarn. Okay, obvious touchdown opportunity there. When we look at this, when we look at this rush, I want you to watch up top versus their left tackle again. And you see, we kind of talked about this already. That's not really a move. And you go, well, Mike, maybe another, 2 steps he would have got there. But if you look at this at the contact point, okay, if you look at this right there, and you see that body position, I'm talking up here against number 65. That man is not in a position of power. If you look at their left guard and their right guard, they're in positions of power. Like, they should feel good about where they're at. This man is not in a position of power. And this is where you have to be willing and able to just go right through him and start crossing face here and making Ben, who does not move like he used to, making him move off the spot. Moving a guy off the spot and making him throw with his feet, not necessarily under him, is the difference between success and failure in the NFL. Remember, pressure equals picks. It's not only about getting the strip sack. Pressure equals picks. So this is an opportunity for him to do that, but instead, when you take the rip and you go underneath, go over the top, he does not affect the throw at all, I guess is what I'm really saying. So Kenny Clark he's just doing this more and more. It just pops up this year all the time. You just see how dominant, and this is what I'm talking about. And you saw it in the run game. We talked about it on the podcast. He's just destroying this back block, right? So the center's coming back. Center obviously has his head on the wrong side, but you just talk about leverage, speed, and explosiveness, first step power. Like, Kenny Clark's got it all in the run game right now, and he's just doing such a great job. And you just hope that it eventually ends up translating into a pass rush. There's a guy, Devon Gaucho, who plays for the Patriots. He was down in Miami with me, and he's kind of the same kind. He's the same kind of player where he's got this amazing leverage, first step, and just really, really good in the run game. And you just want to see it transfer to the passing game and get more sacks, just because when you have guys that are willing to do the dirty work in the run game, like, you want to see those guys. You really want to see those guys find more success in the passing game and kind of get the stats and the recognition they deserve. Because Kenny Clark is honestly playing at a potentially an all-pro level in the run game. He's just never going to have the numbers to back it up. So again, if we're going to stay on the I love Billy Turner theme here. So Billy's playing against Defensive Player of the Year, perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and he's got to hook him, right? Not an easy ask. And it's just one of those. It's just an unknown thing. That's a really, really hard thing to do. Like wheeling on a T.J. Watt for an outside play. That's a really, really hard thing to do, and he just does it consistently. And this is what people will talk about. While we left Mercedes Lewis in and we had a chip. Well, yeah. I mean, in our offense with our personnel, if T.J. Watt had 50 rushes on Aaron Rodgers, he's going to get 5 sacks. I mean, I'm talking about 3 rushes one-on-one. Like, it's not a fair matchup against anybody. There's probably maybe one player in the league that I would say, there's not a single player in the league I'd say is going to beat him every time. It's just always a question. You have to remember when you're thinking about sacks and you're thinking about all these numbers, it's really not a question of if you're going to get beat, if the numbers are big enough. Like, if you rush the ball, let's say you run the ball, or you pass the ball 50 times. It's not a question of what if you're going to beat. It's when, and it's just a question of whether that quarterback's going to be rid of the ball at that point. Like, the other person on the other side of the line has all the advantages, and he's a better athlete. And it's just very, very difficult to imagine that he's going to shut him down completely. There's only one guy I've ever seen that can literally shut down a player for as many times as you want, and that's Walt Jones. Okay. Melvin Ingram. I don't know why there's probably a backstory why he's not playing more. This dude is a bad man. He was so good in San. He's one of those guys that he's been a Pro Bowl player, played with Bosa in San Diego, and he might not have the numbers, but if you ask offensive linemen who do you really not want to play, like, this guy's name was at the top of the list for years. And you see what he does to Yoshir And again, Yosh has been playing well. But when you're scared of leverage, you see his first and second step, he immediately turns to the sideline. And once you turn yourself to the sideline, he takes a short first, brings this second one around. Once you turn yourself to the sideline, now you basically have a three-way go, because I can take you down the middle, you have to brace, I can take you to the outside, you open up like the hand of a clock, I can take you to the inside now, and the inside is where it's really dangerous, and that's what Melvin Ingram takes advantage of here. Back inside, doesn't have that power, gets in on the play. Like, now, this is exactly what we're talking about with our Green Bay Packers defensive ends can be doing, is affecting the throw. Aaron Jones is special. Dude, so much fun to watch. This is just tough, man. This is what I'm talking about. These guys are really, really good. And this is one of those plays we just talked about. You know, he's going to win against, like, if he doesn't beat, you know, whatever our third string tackle a couple times during the game, he shouldn't be in the league anymore, right? And so this is a good learning experience, because this is a loss that, you know, it probably affected that throw, but it wasn't a tragic mistake. This is the last thing I'm going to show. This is what's so great about our offense. So we have trips to the upside. They're still worried about a deep play. And so we're playing 8 off. Okay? We basically have 3-on-2 here with deep, and they're thinking, I'm not sure what they're thinking. I'm sure they're going to drop eventually, but you're the best receiver in the league sitting in your inside slot. You have it set up already for the quick screen, and it's almost like, from the perspective of the Green Bay Packers, you're going, just from a personnel standpoint, they don't have enough players to play against us right now. You know, it almost looks like a busted coverage, but it's not. This is how they wanted to play ball. Man, the way he cuts and moves, I think he's got like a change of direction coach, and man, that guy's really good. So in these situations, it's 3rd and 10. We're going to go scat protection, no back. So this is a situation where, if you can right now, you just have to say, hey, John Runyon Jr., you got to take Cam Hayward, because he's not a great pass rusher, but we are going to go ahead and help over here, because 90's over here, and he's a real deal. Right? 56 is a good player. He's not a great pass rusher. So they identify what the problem is. I'll show this again. They identify what the issue is, and they just do a really good job. But this is the time you help Billy. And understand, from an offensive line's perspective, Billy's taking the top half of TJ Watt here. Like, TJ Watt's wide, he comes back in. Billy's not oversetting, but he's setting enough where he's taking him head up. So he's inviting him into this gap, because honestly, we're covering that gap for him. We're helping him. We're on 2-on-1 right now. Myers is going to take over the D tackle, and we're inviting this guy inside, not to the point where he can just get a free rush. We have to be able to get a hand on him, but the guard should come over, and the next time they do this, you would hope that the guard actually tries to plant one in his ribs as hard as he can and make sure he never wants to come inside again, because that shuts down an entire lane for that tackle, makes the life a lot easier. Back in the day when we were allowed to, go helmet to helmet and be a little bit more violent in offensive line play, one of the things that we would practice actively was, I'd step down and help Flanagan bump the nose tackle, and then you just started going literally hunting, and you're just waiting and waiting. You just take a run when you think that guy's going to come back inside, and I try to hit that guy as hard as I could, and we would count the amount of times we could knock down the defensive end trying to come inside on Chad. Because once we just knew, Chad was such a good player anyways, talking about Chad Clifton, of course, but once you took away that B gap and that defensive end knew, like, man, I'm not going in there and messing around with Mike again. I'm going to go around the corner. Man, it's a whole different game for that tackle, right? It makes it a lot easier. So it's just these little things that they'll get better and better at. You can just see here, it's not that 70 does a bad job. He does a great job. But if you're more violent and you just make him think about it more, again, you always want the defensive line to be thinking about you and not thinking about sacking the quarterback. So great win, man. Can't wait for the Bengals game this week. See you.